Robert Hall. It is so nice to be down here in the megapolis of Providenciales. I suppose the first time you heard someone describe it that way. But definitely this is a sprawling city with a multiplicity of nationalities and the like. So it's an absolute delight to be broadcasting from here today. I want to welcome all of my listeners and viewers around the world, wherever you happen to be. We have large numbers in the United Kingdom, the United States of America, a few in Canada, many around the Caribbean, and some all the way in the far-flung areas like Australia and Switzerland. And I know that a lot of Turks and Caicos Islands are beginning to even visit Dubai. Oh yes, you have wings, you'll fly, I tell you. Yes, I want to welcome all of you, and particularly the thousands in the Bahamas. Many are Turks and Caicos Islanders, others are of Turks and Caicos Islands origin. And as I often say, you go to some communities, it's basically Turks and Caicos Islanders. So welcome. But of course, a special welcome is extended to all those within our shores, whether you're over in Salt Key. Good morning to you, Salt Key. Sometimes you think you're left behind, but certainly expressions never leave you out. And by the way, I was at a conference yesterday, and the Minister for PPID definitely didn't leave you out. Welcome. Good morning to all of you in the nation's capital, Grand Turk. Put a smile on your face, or faces. Better days are ahead. Be optimistic, all right? It's going to happen. Good morning, Big South. As your representative says, big things are beginning to happen. It's popping. You better get ready for it, because I tell you all the time, you don't prepare for it, then others will eat your breakfast. What do you say? Yes, it's true. You better listen to what Bob tell you, okay? Good morning to all of those down on the Twin Islands of Middle and North Caicos. Curry, can you tell me if it's green corn time? What's happening down there? Or should I call Lovey? Welcome to Expressions. And all those over on Pine Key and Parrot Key, boy, say what you like, but the top-end visitors that keep coming in droves, coming in from the cold, coming in. Give them a special TI welcome. And, of course, I hope that management treats you the way you ought to be treated. Good morning to all of you down here in Providenciales. From one point to the other. As I rode around yesterday, it's bursting at the seams. Welcome. Of course, I have a guest here today, and a special welcome to them. And within a minute, we're going to dive into today's program, a very exciting program that's lined up for you. In fact, anytime the Minister of Education shows up, hey, there is excitement guaranteed. I tell you that. All right. But let's start the show with a word of prayer. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father and our God, we thank you for this brand new day. We thank you for this island home of ours, Turks and Caicos Islands. May we treasure it, and may we do all within our power for its upliftment. We pray in particular for our young people, those who are upgrading their skills, that they can improve their own living standards, as well as help to build a better Turks and Caicos Islands. We pray for the others, the few who are delinquent and prone to violence. We pray that you may touch their hearts and let them have a change. We pray that you would bless this nation, its leaders, and all within our borders. These favors we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Now, without much further ado, we're going to dive right into the program. And it's always a distinct pleasure to have the Minister of Education, the Honorable Rachel Taylor, here. Like I said, and I'm not throwing shades at anybody, but this is one minister who doesn't feel for words. It's like she got it at her fingertips, like somebody says. Honorable Minister, welcome to Expressions.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm going to invite you to give an overview before we start talking to the other members. I know it has to do with your internship and apprentice program, a very innovative idea that certainly is beneficial to those involved, and we want to invite others to get involved. Honorable Taylor.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Hall, Honorable Hall. And indeed, it's a pleasure for me to be here. And a special thank you to all persons within the Turks and Caicos Islands who continue to partner with the internship and apprenticeship program that actually commenced during the year 2021. But with me today, Mr. Hall, I have 4 of our apprentices. Actually, these are students who have completed their tertiary education and who have registered with our apprenticeship program. What that apprenticeship program does is actually provide an opportunity for our interns, our students who have returned from college and have yet to be placed on a permanent job. But today you would hear from them because they would tell you that after being registered with the apprenticeship program, they have done so well and have been able to transition into a permanent post. And then right next to me, Mr. Hall, is Miss Grace Ann Harvey, who's actually one of our apprentices, and she currently leads on the internship and apprenticeship program. So I am so proud of our young people, and I want to take this opportunity to thank the various ministries as well as the private sectors who have partnered with us to ensure that our students gain the necessary work experience to prepare them for the world of work.
Honorable Minister, how many persons in total throughout the Turks and Caicos Islands are involved in this program?
Okay, since its inception, for the past 2 years, we have had a total of 120 students that were actively engaged in the program. That's the internship and apprenticeship. And currently registration continues because we decided to reopen it. It was closed at the end of March, but there were so many students who were reaching out to us. We continue to leave it open. So today we have 77 students who have registered for the program. And out of that, we have 72 interns and 5 apprentices who are returning home during this month of May. Now, do remember that the internship program that factors in students who are currently enrolled in the program, their period is 6 to 8 months for the internship. Then they return to school. But our apprentices, those students who have completed tertiary education, their tenure can be from 8 months to 12 months.
Now, for those then, the apprentice, I'm sure the aim is eventually to have them transition to jobs.
Yes.
How has that gone thus far? I know it's somewhat in its infancy,
yes,
but speak to that.
Now that has gone quite well. And for example, we have, I wanted them to talk their story.
All right,
so for example, we have Miss Cook here, who worked with forensic sciences with the police department, and she's recently been employed with the Turks and Caicos Islands government. And then we have Miss Alice.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, we had another apprentice who's not in country right now. She was working with InterHealth Canada, and they were so excited. And I must say, she surpassed many of the persons within InterHealth Canada, giving her an opportunity for a senior position. That's Miss Randisha Alice. And then, of course, we have Billy, who's currently working with the Sports Commission. But Billy intends to further his education at the end of this academic period. And of course, we have Mr. Harvey right over there, who was able to work very closely with the Ministry of Tourism. And within about 3 months, he was transitioned into permanent work. So I must say that is going quite well.
That is indeed great. I'm going to pose a few questions now to the others. We have 2 very beautiful young ladies, and I would say 2 dashing gentlemen. I am indeed pleased to be here with you today. Starting with you, Miss Harvey. Before you get to that, because the Harvey name strikes a Middle Caicos connection. Speak to me of that first.
So I can confirm that I have roots from Middle Caicos on my father's side. My father is Bishop Alvin Harvey.
I thought so, but I just want to be correct. Yes, my good friend, I watch his programs, I read the stuff that he writes. A great man. Please give him my highest regard. All right? Now tell us then, Turks and Caicos, not just me, while I'm delighted to listen, but tell Turks and Caicos and other, youngsters involved about your experience.
So my experience so far with assisting the program has been really great because I get to interact with so many individuals like myself looking to gain experience from companies and looking to go into careers and fields that they never thought that they could go into, because usually they get turned away from lack of experience or needing to get the experience or finding entry-level jobs. So I feel like this is a great opportunity for everybody to try and take advantage of.
That's great. Ms. Cook.
Yes, sir.
Well, I don't think I need to ask the connection there. I can see your mom right in your face and your smile and everything. Delighted to have you. Share your experience with us.
Well, my experience in the apprenticeship program with the Royal Turks and Caicos Police Force was magnificent. It was bringing a dream that I once had into a reality. It made me know that what was once a passion is really and actually truly my passion. Forensic science and crime scene investigation is what I want to spend my life doing, and protecting and serving in the Royal Turks and Caicos motto is to protect and serve all property in whatever capacity that they can. So, and I'm here to serve my country is great.
What motivated you to move in that direction? And I said it against the background that what we find, there tend to be a number of persons wanting to pursue law, medicine, accounts, and few other areas. Not that they are not important, but a country cannot be built simply by those areas. And one can go on and have great careers in other fields and help to build these Turks and Caicos Islands. So I'm more than delighted to see that you've gone into that area. What motivated you to move in that direction?
Okay, at first it was just about how can I give back? How can I be helpful? I'm a very, extremely helpful person. So it's either between being a doctor or it was just being a doctor at first. And then I was like, okay, I'm a very anxious person. So if becoming a doctor and I make a mistake and I end up hurting someone, it's going to be, I could either kill someone, right? So the next step was law enforcement. I can help someone on the basis of collecting evidence, looking at blood. I've always been interested in evidence. I've watched NCIS my entire life, CSI Miami, Hawaii 5-0, anything that had to do with collecting evidence. So that was my motivation. I love to help people, and the best way for me to do that is to serve my country in the capacity of a law enforcement officer.
That is indeed great, because there are so many career paths within the police force. And our youngsters, not too many of them are aware of that. And many seem wary about joining the force. Although they complain about so many foreigners as such. And I want to encourage young Turks and Caicos Islands to look towards the police force in developing a career, and not simply looking for a job. Because some, when they've knocked on other doors and it's closed, then they say, well, let me try the police force. That ought not be the case. You can certainly make great careers within the police force. And anyone who listens to me on Expressions, they know that I have always been championing the cause of the police, and I want to see the police staffed, where possible, from top to bottom by Turks and Caicos Islanders. I've had a lot to say about foreign commissioners, I ain't going down that street today. Turks and Caicos Island know where I stand. But I'm more than delighted to see a young person like you moving in that area, and I am sure that move in itself would interest other youngsters. Now, Mr. Forbes, wow, I've read about you, I've seen all sorts of magazine, newspaper articles, but never got the chance to really meet you. And I'm sure you know, let me say, I regard you as a Middle Caicos man in the sense that your father, Herman, was from Middle Caicos, and I remember him growing up as a boy, and sometimes here in Providenciales I have visited him, although it's been quite some time. How is he doing?
He's doing great. He's doing great.
Okay. A tough man, I'm
Yes.
telling you. The guy is something else. I love his spirit. Determined. Yes. Now, Mr. Forbes, of course, I've watched your prowess on the soccer field and as captain of the Turks and Caicos team. And I must say that although we may not be victorious in many games, as we're relatively new at the national level, but your success cannot be measured just by victories or even by goals scored. While that's a good measuring rod, but the inspiration that you give to other youngsters to do likewise, the promotion that you give to Turks and Caicos Islands, in many ways, promotion that the tourist board, despite government having lots of money, I would say cannot easily afford, okay? And I'm absolutely delighted. And you know what thrilled me even more? When I heard that you were in this program and that you're furthering your studies, because many athletes, be it professional basketball players or others, some tend to think that life begins and ends with that sport. But later in life they realize, oh my, it's not so. And so furthering your studies not only assist you in managing what funds you may have accumulated, but give you a new lease on life. I know my introduction is a bit long, but it's because I'm really thrilled to meet you. Speak to your experience.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm Billy Forbes. Yes, my dad from Middle Caicos. So I moved away from home when I was 17. So now as a 32-year-old man to come back, I've never actually have a actual job. So to come back and get this opportunity to work with Jody Harvey, which is someone I looked up to. Right now I'm in the process of building one of the national registry in the country, which is gonna be amazing. We don't have that yet. So my job is to build this registry, and anybody from anywhere in the world can go and look up athletes from Turks and Caicos Island and know everything they've done in the past and in the present as well. So for me to have this opportunity to come back home and work on this program, it's really a dream come true for me.
Well, that's great. But if I just go back to the sports bit a little bit, there are various professional teams that you had played with. Tell us a little bit about some of them and what the experience was.
The experience was amazing. My second year as a student athlete, I got drafted to play professional soccer, which was the first Turks and Caicos Islander to do so. I've played for over 12 years. It was amazing. It was amazing. So now I'm back home trying to work, trying to give back to the community that gives so much to me. So yeah.
And then during those stints, because I am a sports fan. Of course, I'm a boxing fanatic, but I used to play soccer likewise and did middle distance running when I was in high school in Jamaica. I noticed that particularly a number of the African football players have faced racism, and that's a very ugly thing. Have you ever experienced touch of racism in your international exposure?
I'll say no, I haven't, but I have seen it.
Okay, all right. All right, any others of you would wish to further elaborate? Or
Yes,
Honorable Minister?
Yes, I also want to take this opportunity to mention that the internship and apprenticeship program factors in all our belonger Turks and Caicos Island students, and that also those students who are BOTC. Now, it also takes into consideration students who are not on government scholarships, because currently out of the 77 students who have registered for this year, we have 35 who are on scholarship, government scholarship, and then we have 16 from the Turks and Caicos Islands Community College, and then there are 26 other, meaning that there are students who are probably funding their own tuition. I just thought I should make that known. And to also mention that our interns receive $320 per week, and then the apprentice $1,800 per month. But I'm so pleased that there are some of the private sectors who decided to top up on that $320 because they are so impressed with the level of work of students.
That's great. Yes. And I want to encourage all Turks and Caicos Islanders and British Overseas Territories to make use of the opportunities that are now available at the community college. In fact, I spoke with perhaps 100 students yesterday morning at a certain school, and I was imploring them to make use of those opportunities. We have hired the best at the inception establishing this community college. And we had professionals from around the Caribbean, some of the top persons. So this is not a second-rate institution. Just for those who may not know, at the very inception, we had people like Dr. Sangster from CAS, which is now University of Technology. We had Dr. Errol Miller, a professor in education from the University of the West Indies. My former principal, by the way, at Michael. I tell you, I had to laugh when I was Minister of Education. He came down, I had to meet him, because I remember being called to his office a couple of times. And when you go to his office, he stares you straight in the eyes. That's why I'm looking down a little bit, because he was a serious man. I was a student leader, and sometimes we had little demonstrations of things. And I can never forget one morning he said, I heard you all planning to demonstrate, but you go outside this gate, I will expel all 300 of you. Good morning, my word is final. We said boo, we say all sorts of things, but ain't nobody move. I was SRO, they asked me, Hall, what are we gonna do? I said, me? Man, Turks Island too far for me, I have to catch a plane. No way. But the bottom line is, and what I always look at, when our students from the community college go to other institutions abroad, they're always making the honors list
Yes,
and doing well.
Very well.
That speaks volume of our institution. And so our people must embrace that. I know many, I want to go to England, I want to go to the United States. And Honorable Minister, if it is some relative of mine, it doesn't matter. Where there are opportunities at our community college, don't give them no scholarship to go elsewhere.
Yes, I'd like to speak to that, and I want to take this opportunity to really congratulate our parents as well as our students who have decided to enroll at the community college, because we had aimed for a 15% increase, and what we have done is surpass that. We have surpassed that, so therefore up to date it has increased by 38%. And Mr. Mahal, the majority of those students are male students,
Wow.
which is quite commendable.
That is indeed, because that is something on this very program, expressions that is, that always been challenging our youngsters, particularly in Grand Turk. Some of them are in small businesses and so on. There are short courses, for instance. Go and make use of it. I don't want to embarrass anybody, but there are some contractors who got hell to know how to use a tape, let alone bid on projects. But there are courses that can help you sharpen your skill. There is no excuse I want our people to embrace these opportunities. And again, I commend you, Honorable Minister, and your government for providing free tuition to community college level. I don't want to single out other places in the Caribbean to make them look bad, but I see even now where at some colleges, even some high schools, they are soliciting funds to help many individuals to complete. I mean, I'm part of a high school and college chat, and both of them tend to ask for contribution to help students one way or another. So we are so fortunate here in the Turks and Caicos Islands, and many times they say we got to count our blessings,
yes,
but we seem not to understand that. Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Another one. What's that?
Another one.
Yes, this is the second time around. You were here on Expressions sometime before. Was it with environmental health or?
The Department of Tourism Regulations.
Tourism Regulations, all right, good. I have so many different persons from time to time, I tend to forget which department. Speak to us of your experience.
Well, yes, my name is Ali Kabi. I'm the communications officer at the Department of Tourism Regulations, and I started off as an apprentice at the Ministry of Tourism under the leadership of Honorable Josephine Connolly, P.S. Wesley Clevo, and yeah, it was a great opportunity to have that opening, especially coming from school. You know, you come back home and you know the first thing you want to do is work. You want to be of value, of contribution to your community, and it's not always easy to do that straight away because you know you don't have the years of experience. Although I had pursued summer internships in the past with PTV, I think to some degree that was still not sufficient for some. So you know, I hadn't anticipated the apprenticeship being an avenue for me. However, it was a pleasant surprise and it exceeded my expectations. And now I'm working at the Department of Tourism Regulations as their communications officer, obviously contributing still to the ministry, and you know, just being able to do so many things that I never thought that I'd be able to do, and meet so many people that I wouldn't have met if I had not even pursued the apprenticeship. So yeah, it's been great.
That is a great story, to tell you the truth, you know. And as one who tries to keep his ears, as it were, to the ground and watch what's going on in these islands, there was a great deal of stir and noise with the transition from Tourist Board to DMO. And of course, I'm thankful to those who served in the Tourist Board and to those who transitioned to DMO. One of the things that is quite evident, though, whether the public wants to give credit or not, the numbers keep rising. The numbers keep rising. Several years ago, I wrote an article, and I tried my best to see if I could find it. And while I'm no prophet, but it possibly was somewhat prophetic, it was during or slightly after the marriage of the Honorable Michael Mizik and Lisa Ray McCoy. And I wrote then that the Turks and Caicos Islands was abuzz because of that marriage. But the Turks and Caicos Islands will be abuzz long after the marriage of Honorable Michael Mizik and Lisa Ray. Isn't it true?
It's true.
You better believe. The buzz continues. From where you sit, do you think the recent threats that have been issued because of our gun laws and what have you is impacting the tourism in any great way?
I believe that the recent gun threats, it is leaving a negative stain on Turks and Caicos. However,
we know our product and we know what we have to offer, and we have so many markets that are available to us, and we are making efforts to sustain this product, especially within my department, under the leadership of Director Avi Adams. Turks and Caicos is more than just sun, sand, and sea. It's the people, and we have good people. We have great culture, and I believe that people want to come and see that. And the people coming to this country will want to follow the guidance that is being provided to them by the law, and they will want to respect that, because we have, for the most part, we have great tourists who come here and they enjoy the place, they leave great reviews, and they enjoy the experience that they receive from being in Turks and Caicos, and they want to share that with other people. So yeah, I think that yes, it's not great what's happening, but I don't think it's to our detriment.
All right, thanks very much for that assessment. Now, as one who prior to COVID never bothered with Facebook, but I find now I'm waking up to Facebook. I'm going to sleep with Facebook, my constant companion. And one of the things I've been doing recently, almost anybody who talk nonsense about Turks and Caicos at Robert Hall answering them. There is this Black American who visited one of the supermarkets. This was comparing and complaining the prices. I even end up getting into, arguing with some Turks and Caicos Islanders who's defending. No one can deny that Turks and Caicos is expensive. Yeah. But like I said, everything is virtually imported. I point out that those items are regarded as elastic commodities. Whatever the price, people who want it will pay for it. And so it's better in any event to tax those as opposed to tax rice and sugar, and so on. And I used an expression that I wouldn't use here, but broke, and the rest people, I said, this is not the place for them. And that's a fact. And one person who is a local business said, shame on you, Turks and Caicos for everybody, blah, blah. I say, yes, all visitors are welcome, but they must understand, you don't come here expecting to find Miami or Dominican Republic or even Jamaica prices. This is Turks and Caicos, and we have to do that. And since the program is seen virtually around the world, I have to make just a little comment, Honorable Minister, with regards to the gun situation, because I've answered several of them, including one just last night, who continue to threaten what they will do. I told them, I said, listen, Turks and Caicos Islands has its laws, just like the United States and elsewhere. While we have no beef with Americans, we certainly have beef with those doggone terrorists who are threatening us. That's nothing more than economic terrorism to threaten our industry and what have you. And whether it's the same source or other sources that are issuing these bomb threats, that does not make sense, and we will not cower, bend or break because of them. All they have to do when traveling, check their bags, make sure there are no guns and bullets. Exactly. I notice a person was arrested at Norman Manley International Airport in Jamaica. I'm going to see what they're going to do there. I did a comparison of our laws. Our laws is a maximum of 12 years.
Right.
The High Court just ruled that the judges have no discretion in terms of mandatory, but they have a discretion as to whether you impose the maximum or not. So they have that level of discretion, bearing in mind the peculiar circumstances. But while our maximum is 12 years, Jamaica's maximum is 15 to 20 years. I lived in Jamaica during the years of Michael Manley, and during that period, if you were found with guns and bullets, it was what was called indefinite detention. You know what indefinite means? He could beat as long as they wish.
That's right.
And then there was a gun court established to deal with gun cases. Now, we haven't taken such draconian measures, but against the constant murders and other gun-related crimes, we have to make decisive action. Other Caribbean territories have similar laws, some with little more flexibility, depending on the age and first-time offenders. I say that primarily for the benefit of our international viewers. But, sir, continue to do well. And I believe maybe we're getting close to the next segment.
Yes.
All of you continue to do well. My prayers and encouragement are with you.
Yes, thank you for that, Mr. Hall. But I think I would want Ms. Cook to talk about her new role, because she's transitioned into a permanent position at the police.
Yes, so since the 25th of March 2024, I've been hired as a special constable within the forensic support unit of the Royal Turks and Caicos Police Force. It's the dream role that I wanted, and I thank God for this program for giving me the opportunity to experience what I needed to get into that role in the first place.
Well, that's great. Congratulations, and I'm sure you will do well. You will climb the ladders.
I just want to also highlight one thing. In terms of that scholarship bond, this year we made an amendment to the policy, because what we realized is that upon return to the Turks and Caicos Islands, our students had to seek job opportunity within government. But we saw that we are not able to place all our students upon their return. So what we have done now is that provide an opportunity for them to gain employment also in the private sector, and they're also able to comply with their bond being in the private sector. So I want to encourage our students to return home. As I've mentioned a while ago, there are 35 of the students who are going to be placed in the internship program commencing this month, and I want to thank them for seizing that opportunity.
Well, thank you for that explanation, and I firmly believe that every individual who has benefited from taxpayers' money to go to college, university, ought to see it as the obligation to return. I have a daughter who is benefiting from a partial scholarship, and let me tell you, although I haven't been in England in years, and I know she will come back to do a service when she completed, but if she give me the slightest idea, I'll take a flight, go to England and bring her. Because it is totally unfair to provide those opportunities. While I know education is to prepare you for life worldwide, but you owe that obligation to the country. Thanks much for that explanation, Honorable Minister.
Okay.
Any final comments for this segment before we transition to the other segment? I mean, I'm not one who watched time. That's up to you all.
Yes, I would like to share something lastly. While working with the program and interacting with so many individuals, I noticed a question always popped up, whether they would ask, is there any work available in the field of work that I want to go into? Because as you mentioned earlier, a lot of people expect it to be just health and law, but there's so many different fields that the Turks and Caicos needs. And I think that encouraging people with just not the standard job to come back would be a great way to develop the country, and just to let everybody know that yes, even if you're not a doctor or a lawyer, we have opportunities for you as well, and we can find a place for you. And yes, I would just like to encourage everybody to join.
Yes. And thank you very much for that, Grace. And so you see why you work so closely with me. And Mr. Hall, it is, although I've mentioned it each time I have the opportunity to speak in relation to internship and apprenticeship, when our students do return, they are placed in their field area. So if someone, even if it's in teaching, some of the students would say, Minister, I'm coming home for the summer break, I'm studying in the area of teaching, where will you place me? Well, definitely you would be placed within the ministry, or within the Department of Education, or within the youth department. Or sometimes you have some schools that run programs throughout the summer, so we align them accordingly. And I must say that we have been quite intentional when we made the amendments to the scholarship policy to ensure that positions are first available to bridge the skills gap. And I must say, in speaking with Grace, and when we looked at the list the other day, and we look at the skills that our students are studying, currently studying in, you know, it's so amazing. It's from the traditional, where you have lawyers and doctors and teachers, we have environmental scientists, we have project managers, and you know, the list goes on. We have students, especially what I'm quite pleased about, Mr. Hall, I must say that as we prepare for our students for the registration for the scholarships, I'm noticing, Mr. Hall, I must say that the largest cohort of students for teaching will be in early childhood and primary, and they seize that opportunity at the community college. Right. But then I had one of my young persons who work with the scholarship unit. She said, Minister, you wouldn't believe it. I said, what happened? We have 16 students who are applying for secondary education. Wow, so I was so excited about it, because you know that is a gap we really have to fill. So I'm so excited that persons are listening, the students are listening. But I think once they realize that that opportunity will be afforded to them to transition into the permanent workplace, I think the uptick will be greater.
And if I may add on that, as much as can be done with regards to career guidance in schools, that ought to be done. Like I have said to my daughters each step of the way, don't simply look at a career because that's the field you think you like. One, look at it from the point of view where your qualifications lead you. And number two, look at where you intend to work. For instance, why study space technology if you're not going to come to Turks and Caicos? I don't see us launching any spaceships in the near future. All right? And particularly, look at those areas of critical shortage.
Yes.
And that is why many might have heard me compliment Crivan Adams, who went on and studied environmental health.
Yes.
A field where not many Turks and Caicos Islands gravitate towards.
Yes.
They're the Padu girl and another one in veterinary science.
Yes.
And I encourage many others as far as other environmental and marine studies that we need. And so, Ms. Harvey, just continue the good work you're doing.
Yes, and Mr. Hall, you are so right, and that's the reason why we are capitalizing of the opportunity to partner with Honorable Connolly. So, because the blue economy, that's a critical area as well, to ensure that persons are upskilled in those areas. And the reason why we are being so intentional about reintroducing agricultural science into the high school in North Caicos, the Women Gardner High School, we are starting with that school, and then we will introduce it into the other high schools within the next 2 years.
I mean, that is so important. I remember years ago when I was head of the primary school in Bottle Creek, Mr. Hubert James, he had nice gardening projects with the school there, and did very well. And as government is trying to expand the agricultural sector, the school is indeed a starting point.
Yes, definitely.
And so I certainly encourage you all to do even more with regard to that. We are transitioning to another phase on this show, when we are going to have a discussion with several other individuals. We have to reclaim our streets. We have to certainly work hard to change the attitude of some of our youngsters who are inclined to criminal activities. I was watching the police in operation just last evening, and certainly commend them, where they apprehended individuals with a gun. That's one less gun on the streets. and I just wish them continued success in that regard. But Honorable Minister, again, I wish you to take the lead on this segment, and like we did earlier on, then we'll speak with the others. But before we get into any details, I would wish the other participants to introduce themselves, starting with this tall, handsome, bearded gentleman.
Good morning, Turks and Caicos. I am Jerron Harvey, the Director of the Department of Rehabilitation and Community Supervision.
Great. And this handsome gentleman over there.
Good morning, TCI. I'm Dwight Gardner. I'm the Superintendent for Operational Response and also Community Policing. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, thank you very much. I think I'm quite familiar with that gentleman. I often use the expression, the blood that courses through his veins, just about the same as mine, in that we are cousins. Okay? His grandmother is now deceased, but that was my aunt, my dad's sister. And this lovely lady whom I haven't seen much in person recently, though I've seen her quite often on Facebook. All right. Welcome.
Thank you.
And introduce yourself.
Good morning, Turks and Caicos. My name is Jasmine Thomas. I'm the Director for the Department of Youth Affairs.
Great. Honorable Minister.
Yes, and of course, chiming in will be Dr. Burrows, the lead person who is actually assisting us with implementing the Reaching the Streets program. So here we are today, Mr. Hall. We notice that we have persons from across the spectrum, and the reason for that is because we are taking a multi-agency approach in an effort to ensure that we provide mechanisms, build capacity within our people to help us to deliver for our young men in particular. So actually what happens is that Reaching the Streets is actually a comprehensive intervention strategy, and it's really designed to address and to mitigate the actual increase in challenges that are posed by youth involvement, particularly in gun and gang related crimes. And I'm so pleased that we have actually sought to gain some sort of support from Dr. Burrows and his partners, and they have actually developed this program, and they have actually had proven strategies, and they have shared it not just with Turks and Caicos Islands, but also regionally and internationally. And I'm delighted that we are actually exploring this intervention, which will help to improve our current systems and procedures. Because I'm quite sure you will hear from many of us here on the panel today that we currently have systems and procedures in place. But what can we do to strengthen such systems, all in the interest of providing opportunities for those persons who work very closely with young people?
Well, in any particular order, perhaps the lady sandwich there, the rose in the mid, on the side there. Before we get there, okay. Good morning and welcome, Dr. Burrows. How are you?
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you. I am TGH, thankful, grateful, and hopeful.
Great. I have read quite a bit about you, and I have been told quite a bit about you too by Mr. Knowles in Grand Turk. I'm sure you are familiar with him, the husband of our AG. So welcome again, and share some of your thoughts with us.
Well, first of all, it's a great pleasure to be a part of this special show, and I'm excited about partnering with TCI in combating some of the issues that are not just isolated to TCI, but they're global issues. And thankfully, we have been in a position, and I have been in a position over the years, where I've worked on the front lines and developed strategies that have produce tremendous results. And so one of the things that we decided to do was to put it together in manual form, because one of the things that happens in a lot of developing countries is that we lack resource material and we lack documented evidence of programs and strategies that can be effective. So the book that we put together was a combination of the efforts of several persons who've been working with young men from the streets for many years. So we put together this manual that can be shared with persons and entities who are interested in making a difference. And we emphasize the fact that everybody has a role to play, because sometimes what happens is that we feel like if there's a gang problem or a violence problem, that is either a police problem or maybe, some social service entity. But the truth of the matter is every one of us has a role to play, but we are often ignorant of what role we can play. So Reaching the Streets explains in detail the role that everyone can play. That includes parents, law enforcement, teachers, pastors, and so on. And we have learned a tremendous amount of strategies and information that we believe can be helpful. And not only do we believe it can be helpful, we've seen it work, and we have the receipts. So we have a number of young persons who have been through these programs and have turned out well. In fact, we're going to be bringing one of the young men with us, a young man who was a gang member from about 11 or 12 years old. And today he's a husband, a father, a businessman. So we are delighted to be a part of this process.
Great. You referred to a manual that you have produced. Is that available online or here in hardcover here in Turks and Caicos?
It's available online on Amazon. I don't think it's currently available in Turks and Caicos. However, those who are a part of the course will each receive a manual. So we may have somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 manuals that will be distributed as a part of the course. And then the book would be available on demand, and we will work with parties there in TCI to make sure that there's a supply available for others who would like to benefit from it.
The Minister of Education has just presented me with the book, Reaching the Streets, Lessons in Reaching and Impacting Troubled Youth from the Streets and Gangs, Volume 1, The Essentials. How widely has this been distributed?
Well, currently the major distribution has been within the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos. There are other persons globally who've benefited from it, but for the most part, we did a training here with the Ministry of National Security, with local churches and local agencies, and so everyone who was involved in that process would have received a copy of the book. The persons who've been involved in the first level of training in TCI received the books. I think it was maybe 100 and something books at that time. So right now the distribution has been concentrated between the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, and also London and Ghana, because we also are partnering with entities in London and Ghana for Reaching the Streets training there as well.
In that, I would think your main base is in the Bahamas, with reference to the efforts that you have made there. And I know sometimes it takes a long time and it's somewhat difficult to measure success. But would you say that your interventions there have been quite successful?
Absolutely, and we are able to measure it. the measurement is not necessarily empirical data that has been vetted and analyzed. However, we know of several factors that verify the effectiveness. For example, when we first launched the program in the 90s, we had over 1,000 gang members who turned their lives around and made commitments, to the point where the Prime Minister of the Bahamas actually called me into his office and said, "We will pay you to do what you do." And so they actually did that. They paid us. We developed a program called Operation Redemption, and we took gang members off of the streets and put them to work in a car wash and other entities and mentored them on a regular basis. Today, some of those former gang members are pastors. In fact, one of them is the pastor of two of our churches. Several of them are prominent business people. And so we have a list, and we have names and faces that, show the effectiveness. So it's not theoretical at all. It's very, very practical, and it has been proven in many, many arenas.
While there is a sort of commonality with the social issues in many of these Caribbean countries, yet each country has its uniqueness. And one of the things with consultants, no reference to you, sir, is that they would come in for a few days, talk to various head departments, pick their brains, put together a report. But I firmly believe to fully understand the social issues and dynamics in a particular society, one has to somewhat immerse themselves. I take it you have been here several times. Have you been able to do that? And if so, just give us a little synopsis as to how you view the problems here, because viewing that just like the doctor, you have to have your diagnosis before you can make a prescription.
Yes, actually, what we have done is we actually went into the major gang-infested areas in Turks and Caicos, and we met the players, and we had conversations. In fact, one of the things that we realized when we went into, I think it was 5 Keys is the area that it was called, that the major players in the areas knew us very well. So we knew them from back in the Bahamas. So we were able to engage the local community. We spoke with a number of persons who are what you would call in the game. In the game means actively involved in gang activity and so on. We spoke to, persons within the community who are working in social services and education and so on. And we actually went on the blocks, on the corner, where guys were hanging out and spoke with them. And we got a good picture of what's happening there and who are the potential change agents. We spoke with some potential change agents, and they are actually being incorporated into the training sessions that we are doing. So in order for any intervention to be successful, it has to have local on-the-ground traction. And so that's how we've been able to identify some persons who can be the ones who would actually help to administrate the change. So we've been definitely actively involved. What we realize from experience over the years, like you said, is you can't just meet with a few bureaucrats or technocrats and come up with a solution. You have to feel the pulse. We also went into schools. And when we went into the schools, we got an idea of what was happening just from talking to students, because, students open up when they realize that you're real. Okay, so we didn't come as executives. We came as persons who've been on the streets, who've been in the game, and we talked to the young people, and we got a pulse of what's happening. who the players are, what's going on, and what are the possible strategies that can be employed to create change. So to answer your question, we've been very actively involved in the community. We didn't just do, a drive-by analysis. We actually got involved with the young people. In fact, since I left Turks and Caicos the last time, I've been personally involved with a number of these young men. We've been texting back and forth because, what I realized is that the key for many of the young men who are involved in some of these activities is mentorship and knowledge of avenues of escape. So I've been talking with some of the young men about business possibilities and opportunities, and we've had some good discussions.
It's great, and I love that approach, because so often when vulnerable individuals attempt to make a change, there are those of their peers who do not necessarily want to change at the time, enticing them to come back. And it reminds me of a scripture line, as newborn babes you desire the sincere milk of the word. In this case, they certainly need the encouragement. They need that shoulder to fall back on. And it's so nice to hear that even though you're in the Bahamas, you are still in contact by way of texting some of those whom you have tried to help. And I pray that God will continue to use you as an instrument for healing, for redemption, here in the Turks and Caicos Islands, the Bahamas, and wherever else you may work. I am not sure of your time factor, or whether the Minister of Education or anyone else wanted to make a comment. I did not discuss with the technicians about calls. So
yes, we will continue provide an opportunity for Mr. Harvey. I always call him Dr. Harvey. For Mr. Harvey to speak in terms of his involvement and engagement with Reaching the Streets.
Well, I'm not sure.
So I think, Dr. Bowles, are you able to remain on with us in the event that a question is posed?
I'll stay on.
We didn't get that. Oh, you are prepared?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thanks very much. Mr. Harvey.
So the Department of Rehabilitation is one of the key stakeholders who was part of the Reaching the Streets program. And part of the reason why we saw fit to join this initiative is because we primarily are responsible for the rehabilitation and the prevention and intervention of offenders in the Turks and Caicos. And we have been conducting extensive research and analysis, even dating as far back as 2020, where we've conducted surveys at the prison. And what we've been finding is that the recidivism rate and those who continue to be involved in criminal activity, we found that all of the issues begin to surface during the high school years. And even now, when we see persons who are being hauled before the court, we have a risk assessment instrument that helps us to identify what are the issues that are contributing to their criminal behavior. Many of them who are being charged for a simple minor possession of dangerous drugs, they are being scored as having a high risk of reoffending. And so for us, we look at the comparative analysis now, and in comparison to 10 years, we are finding that those who are their first time committing a crime, they're being assessed as high, and they're having a lot of factors that are pushing them towards criminal involvement in comparison to others. So it just makes our work, we have to be very creative and strategic in what we are doing to try to prevent and reduce reoffending in the Turks and Caicos. And so we just felt that as a department, any initiative that is geared towards prevention and redemption, promoting redemption for individuals in society, that's an initiative as a department that we want to support with our whole being, because that's our ultimate goal, is to create a safer Turks and Caicos Islands. And we can only do that if we continue to reduce crime and try to help those individuals who are engaged in those type of activities, help them so that they can choose a better path and ultimately become a law-abiding citizen.
Great. I'm sure we all must appreciate the efforts that are being made.
Morning. Thank you. So where the Department of Youth Affairs falls in is that we are a diversionary department where we focus on youth empowerment and development. And in particular, our National Youth Policy, Pillar 4, speaks specifically to creating safe spaces and peaceful communities within Turks and Caicos Islands for the youth of Turks and Caicos Islands. Therefore, the Department of Youth plays an integral role in advocacy for such grassroots programs where we attract those unattached youth that may be matriculated into gang violence or youth criminality. So therefore, we have to devise all diversionary programs as possible, and Reaching the Streets is one of those programs that we know have the statistics, and as Dr. Barrow says, the receipts, and how we can reach those unattached youth and ensure that they are being empowered and matriculated into starting their own businesses or developing some sort of venture that we know will empower them, but also Turks and Caicos.
Well, thanks much. And
thank you. Mr. Hall, you mentioned earlier in discussion the police just yesterday apprehending 3 individuals who were in possession of a firearm. That's exceptional work by those officers yesterday. But yet, in relation to the challenges we face with crime, that's just a small dent. Because at where we're at now in terms of crime, there's a lot of work to be done. And it's going to take a holistic approach. And this is why I'm so happy that we as the police department were part of this program in Reaching the Streets. I think it falls in line with some of the work that we're currently doing in terms of prevention, intervention, and then of course enforcement. But we know over the years has proven we cannot enforce our way out of the problems that we have now. So just want to highlight a bit of the work that we're doing from a prevention standpoint. We have the community policing team that's doing exceptional work and being in the schools, speaking to young people about discouraging them from being involved in gangs, having any involvement to do with firearms, drugs. We also have our SPP unit, Safeguard and Protection Unit, that's also in the schools speaking to young people. We also are putting out public awareness messages focusing again on young people, because we know most of the crime that's committed, primarily committed by young people, young men specifically, between the ages of 18, I will go as high as 35. That's where we have the most challenges. And just finally for me, I just want to highlight some amazing work by our officers. Our community policing team consists of Sergeant Forbes, Terrence Smith, Krishana Williams, and Sharika Williams. I just want to mention those officers and just give them credit, give them their flowers, because they're out there constantly on a daily basis within the community working very hard. Also, I want to highlight another officer that just in our divisional parade day before yesterday that we rewarded for his selfless work. He's not part of the community policing team. However, after work, he dedicated his time to going to the Clement Howell and speaking with students, at-risk young men specifically. Officer Gale. So I just wanted to highlight him. But it's a lot of work that we're doing out there. We also have the Pell program that is a great partnership along with the Sports Commission, Honorable Taylor, where it's a sports program, softball for girls, basketball for boys, in which over the summer we try to get them involved in something that's something proactive, something productive that will steer them away from getting involved in antisocial type behaviors. So that's just a bit. I don't want to go too long. I'm short of time, but there's just a bit of some of the work that we're doing. So I'm happy for this partnership, for this involvement with Reaching the Streets.
Thanks ever so much for that contribution, and that is indeed the way to go, community policing, because the community must not simply view the police as individuals who are just going to come nab you for a little thing, but while respecting the position you have, in some ways they should see you as a friend, as a protector,
yes,
you know. And Dr. Burrows, I would wish you to chime in at this stage, because one of my observations here in Turks and Caicos, which is really a melting pot with a multiplicity of nationalities, there are a segment, and I don't want to pull out any particular nationality, who to a great extent have no love really for Turks and Caicos, because they feel like they have been sidelined, overlooked. And in some instances, we may very well be guilty of that. Many of them have challenges to get documents, because indeed, many of them would want to leave anyway. And I think there's a similarity in the Bahamas. Speak to that and share some of your observations, sir.
Yes, there's an absolute similarity with the Bahamas. And regardless of people's economic situation, immigration situation, at the end of the day, if they are present with us, we have to find a way to make it work and to integrate them. And if they don't want to be integrated, then we have to take the appropriate steps. So I think the programming in that environment is a little bit more complicated than typical, because you also have a language barrier. But what I find is that engagement is the key. When we were in Turks and Caicos, we actually went into some of the communities, and there were people within the communities who knew the language and who were able to help us communicate. So we have to have strategic partners, and there has to be an overall strategic plan to affect every community. It's not easy. The language issue, the social dynamics, complicated, but it is what we are faced with, and we have to continue to deal with it. When we talk about our problem here in the Bahamas, we have had to deal with it because a number of the young men who I've worked with were of Haitian descent in particular, and they had many challenges. I'll just tell you about one young man I was working with. He came to the Bahamas at a very young age, and his parents left one day when he was about 14 or 15. He has another brother. They left unannounced, went to Miami, and never communicated with him again. And so he had to grow up his younger brother without any income, without any resources, and he ended up in a gang, and the gang was part of his survival. But we were able to reach him, to engage him, and he later ended up being involved in some of our programs. For a while, he was very active. After a while, he kind of faded out. But, when I saw him recently, he was still positively engaged, was no longer involved in the streets. And in fact, he was working and helping out another church, maintaining their facilities and so on. So there are possibilities and there are avenues where we can reach even those who come from these challenged backgrounds, who come from different countries, have a language barrier. Of course, as I said, it's not easy, but all things are possible when you believe and when you are strategic in your engagement.
Tomorrow's, I wish to thank you very much for taking the time. I know you're a busy man, to be with us today on Expressions. And I look forward in a subsequent visit to the Turks and Caicos Islands to have you as my guest at length here on Expressions.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
All the best, my brother. God bless.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Burrows, and looking forward to seeing you this weekend. But Mr. Hall, I just want to end up by saying that this Reaching the Streets initiative is actually being put in place to bring to fruition a national training and development program, which is actually designed by Dr. Burrows, but it will take into consideration efforts of each of our entities that you see here today and many more, including, I must say too that we were quite intentional to ensure that the Turks and Caicos Tourism Association is also on board with us, so they can partner with us as we continue to bridge this gap. But I also want to make mention something that you questioned Dr. Burrows in terms of relationships. And I must say that even in reading the information that he presented to us, I begin to realize that transformative change comes through building relationships. And it's going to be important for us to gain access to these individuals, access to the students at schools. But there are many times when persons who try to gain access are not necessarily equipped with the knowledge and skills to be able to intervene. So what these 3 days on Providenciales will also consist of cohorts of persons coming from North Caicos and Middle Caicos, and then another 3 days on the island of Grand Turk, we will bring together key persons from South Caicos. It is really to equip them with the knowledge and the skills to be able to intervene on our part. Not only just intervene, but when they intervene, are they equipped to be able to deal with the challenges? So that's why we are encouraging persons to attend the 3-day workshops, because each day will have different strategies to employ as we try to do our best to mitigate the challenges that exist within our young people. But it's going to take into consideration different aspects of it. So we have to look at prevention, intervention, and Mr. Harvey know how much I admire him when we talk about rehabilitation. And when you think about rehabilitation, people think it only happens within prison.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Rehabilitation happens outside of prison as well.
Sure.
And I'm so happy for the various strategies that rehabilitation unit is currently employing. And I always say to Jazz, who is my director of youth, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's going to take concerted efforts for us to partner together so that we can definitely be able to work on one accord for the betterment of the young people of the Turks and Caicos Islands.
Honorable Minister, I know you have another appointment, but do we have another 5 minutes?
Yes. You definitely we can.
All right. We have 2 texts, and a very significant portion of the show is often devoted to call-in, so we're going to permit 1 or 2 calls. Okay.
Yes.
And so for my listeners, the number to call is 946-2007, or you may call 1-900-2222-007. I have 2 texts that have come in. You can text me 244-7332, but don't call. All right. The call numbers are 946-2007 or 1-900-2222-007. Here are the texts. And good morning to you, Miss Della Higgs. How are you? I haven't seen you for a while. But she texts to say, I think that most students want to return and build a country. There must be a diverse range of professional opportunities and competitive pay to encourage young people to pursue careers in their fields of the TCI. So that's one.
Yes, and I can respond to that. And I think, as mentioned a while ago, that's why we have a large number of students now applying to enter the teaching profession. I think we can say as a government, we have recently gone through our pay and grading exercise. And we have seen since that a lot of persons are now applying for the jobs within government. So we have understood that and the reason for the pay and grade review recently.
I mean, I commend the government for that, because the teaching profession is so important.
Yes.
The gateway to any profession you pass through, a teacher, whatever it is. And so while there are some who are critical about teachers getting this and getting that, I say if they're going to get more. I mean, I'm not being an ungrateful nitpicker, like somebody said, but, I certainly appreciate that, having been a teacher myself. Of course, those days were different, because I think when I started teaching, In Jamaica, it might have been $400 Jamaica a month. But anyway, big difference. The second text says, leadership drives the potential in our young people. I think that one is self-explicit, but of course if anyone wants to respond, then fine. The number to call again is 946-2007. You can say we didn't give you an opportunity to field your questions. So if you have, feel free to do so before we close the segment, and not only the segment, actually end the show, because there are other activities taking place.
Okay, I think I should, and they are so true about leadership, and that is the reason why we have many youth leaders within the Turks and Caicos Islands. But when it comes to the challenges in relation to youth, gang, and gun violence, the question is, are they equipped to be able to offer the kind of support that these young people need? So I want to speak specifically to this, and the reason why we want to upskill and retool our leaders so that they will be able to offer the kind of service to these people. But in relation to the reaching the streets, I want us to save our dates. For Providenciales, it's on May 6th to the 8th, and it will commence at the Gustavus Liban Sports Center. The first day starts at 9, and the remaining day starts at 10.
Okay, may I interrupt? We have a caller. Just hold your thought. Good morning, caller. Welcome to Expressions.
Good morning. I want to on behalf of me, on the Taylor, and good morning to the press and the listeners. I want to ask this question, I guess, is directed towards the Department of Rehabilitation. Is this course being provided? And the person who talked to her, the representative of rehabilitation spoke about doing an inspection and indicate is this course being provided into that? Because I think it would be a good course example for inmates that are pursuing parole, to make go this course before being, considered for or whatnot. So that's my question. Is this still being provided into it? If it's not, what is the plan that you guys have for it to be, something that's provided into it? Thanks.
Nice. Thank you so much for that question, caller. One of the things that what we are trying to do is to create a seamless approach and trying to connect the resources about what is available in the community to also inside the prison. And so the prison within itself has a rehabilitation unit, and we are working closely to develop some standard procedures that will ensure that continuity of care for those persons who are also incarcerated, where our probation officers actually go inside the prison and run programs on a regular basis. And so there is a prisoner development model that is currently being developed that will see our probation officers have an influential role inside the prison regarding the rehabilitation. And I know that the prison recently hired a rehabilitation manager, and one of the things that we are working collectively that the Minister of Public Safety has been keen on developing is one of the things he wants is to see some continuity and seamless approach between the rehabilitation department and also the prison. And part of that is because we realize all of the prisoners will eventually come out inside the community, and we need to give them the resources so that they can be successful. And part of that is ensuring that we prepare them for their eventual release inside the community. So what we are doing is trying to promote from a re-entry perspective is ensuring that on day one someone is incarcerated, preparing for their eventual release into the community. And one of the things that was happening is that we soon will be undertaking a risk assessment training for the rehabilitation unit, the same assessment that we use in the community. We are going to be training the individuals inside the prison so that both of us are using the same tools so that both of us can also achieve the same objective, because we understand the importance of giving the prisoners or those individuals who are incarcerated the same access to resources as those who are inside the community, so that we can also prevent them from reoffending and ensuring that they can live their best and successful lives.
And apart from that, thank you very much for that comprehensive response. And that is the reason why the Ministry of Education has decided to partner with rehabilitation. And as part of the rehabilitation process, they are part of our TVAT program. So they come out certified to be able to gain employment. But Mr. Hall, is going to be important for us as a government to make some bold steps. And Mr. Harvey has been working very closely with us in terms of job opportunities upon the being released. So those are some strategic things that will come out of reaching the streets as well, because those are concerns from persons who have been incarcerated and finding it a challenge to find decent work.
And I also think too that a lot of times for people who are involved in the criminal element, it is just a lack of information and sometimes knowing how to navigate the systems, and so having a mentor, someone who know how to navigate those systems so that they can access resources, because many of them have great ideas where they don't necessarily want to work for someone, but they actually want to be an entrepreneur. And so teaching them how to develop a business plan, teaching them about budgeting and how they can access funding to become an entrepreneur is some of those key aspects. And I think one of the pillars of the Reaching the Street initiative is also focused on helping them to become entrepreneurs, because sometimes a lot of them are influential persons themselves, and if we can get them to change their life, they can then become peer mentors to some of the individuals who are involved in the criminal element, and you can see the cycle begin to reduce because they are reaching back into the environment where they came from and helping to help those individuals who might still be caught up. And so it just caused a wraparound approach where each one is reaching one from a societal standpoint.
Just for a brief moment, I want to deviate a little bit from what we're doing. It's not completely unrelated, but at the moment there is the sentencing hearing for Brian Hagerich of Pennsylvania in the United States, who is before the court on gun-related charges. The reports I'm getting is that it is unlikely that he will hear that sentence today because of the length of arguments being put forward by the defense counsel and the like. But on a subsequent show, I certainly would bring a report. I understand that ABC is in the islands covering it. I hope that they would talk to some of the law enforcement individuals, and of course to put things in proper perspective. If any of them are listening, I would be happy to talk to them. My number is 244-7332, because I want to emphasize, and I know how the press plays up things. Ours is not a case against United States or United States citizens in general. It is a simple matter of enforcing our laws. And we ask everyone, whether it is American or other nationalities, to respect our laws, as indeed we do respect American laws. And our citizens, when there and breach the law, they face the consequences. So I wish that they would understand that. And while I'm not looking for any fame or whatever, I'm always a defender for Turks and Caicos and defender for what is right.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have had, in my view, a very interesting and informative show. And I think we're at this point now where we can have closing comments.
Yes, Turks and Caicos, Reaching the Streets, which commences next week, May 6th to the 8th, on the island of Providence, the Isles. The first session will take place at 9 a.m. and on the other 2 days it will commence at 10 a.m. So it is important for us, law enforcement, educators, parents, community leaders, entrepreneurs, non-profit organizations. That means it includes each and every one of you. Please come out so that we are able to play our part in creating a safer and harmonious communities. But I also want to make note that on Grand Turk it will commence on May 9th to the 11th. And these events will take place at the H.J. Robinson Auditorium. So Turks and Caicos Islands, we're looking forward to your full support Because, Mr. Hall, a lot of times we complain about things, and then when you start to put measures in place to address the issues, then sometimes we tend to go silent.
Yes.
So, Turks and Caicos Islands, I want you to show your unwavering support so that we can definitely provide opportunities to provide you with the knowledge and the skills. So together we can make a difference here in the Turks and Caicos Islands. And Mr. Hall, I believe that this is not an impossible venture.
Sure. And although I've invited you to make closing comments, but because this text is quite positive and kind of blended with what you just said, I'll read it in its entirety. And it says, "Good morning, Honorable Hall. It is so great to hear of the initiative that the Youth Department has embarked on reaching our youths, especially those who are at risk of being initiated into gangs and criminal activities. It is great to hear that they went and spoke to those who are actively engaged in this lifestyle to hear from them their views and their reality they're living in. Applaud to Honorable Rachel Taylor and her team for seeking ways to ensure the youths are not left behind." Great. Your comments, Mr. Arbor.
I just think it's important as a country for us to realize how all of us have a role to play. And I think if all of us help to build a house, a wraparound approach, you can even imagine how great of an impact it would be, as opposed to just one individual laying a brick. But if each one of us continue to lay a brick, we can tackle this social ill that is plaguing our country and reduce it in a significant and reduce the impact on our country as a whole. And I just want to emphasize that all of us, no matter where you are in life, or what your profession, all of us have some sort of interaction with young people, and I think all of us have a responsibility to assist in some way. And I think the training in Providence Alice will be held at the Gustavus, and so we don't want you to meet us there, we want you to beat us there on Monday.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to reiterate what Mr. Harvey has said. I firmly believe that we should always view youth as youth first and offenders second. So we should do every means possible to ensure that young people are getting all those opportunities before they even reach the offending stage. And this initiative, Reaching the Streets, is going to ensure that we make an impactful and meaningful initiative to the youth of Turks and Caicos Islands. So when we see youth involving with criminality, let's always remember they are young children first before they became offenders. So let's give them every opportunity possible before we send them to sitting pretty, as we call it in Grand Turk. And that's basically my closing remarks. And I just want to again reiterate, please support the initiative. The program is open to the public,
Yes.
so you don't necessarily have to register, even though we encourage you to register so that we have an official record of your participation. But however, it is open to the public, so I encourage you to come out. You don't necessarily have to be involved with youth interventions now, but if you are interested in learning and interested in being involved, please come to the event. You don't necessarily have to sign up. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I just want to echo the comments of my colleagues to my left. The problems that we're facing today is it's going to take a holistic approach. We need all hands on deck, a cross-section of society, civil servants, all our law enforcement agencies, the religious community. We need to partner in addressing the challenges we face with crime and challenges we face with some of our at-risk young people. I'm happy to be, the Royal Turks and Caicos Islands Police Force is happy to be a part of the Reaching the Streets program and the positive impact that it can make on the community. Also, having said that, I just also want to say from the police force standpoint, we're working diligently to address some of the issues that we're facing with crime. We're being proactive with enforcement, but also, as mentioned earlier, it's also about prevention and intervention. And I think that's where we can make the biggest impact in partnership with all of our stakeholders and the community at large. So thank you again for having me here.
Honorable Taylor, I wish to thank you and your team for appearing here on Expressions today. This is indeed one of the more popular means of getting the message out. I'm hesitant to say most popular, but indeed Expressions is listened to widely. And so I welcome you today, and whenever it is convenient, feel free. To all my viewers and listeners, I want to thank you for your patronage. This is now the weekend. I hope that you have a very happy, peaceful weekend. Then join me again on Monday, God Spares Life, when we'll have yet another informative, educational, and sometimes entertaining expressions. God bless.